Last winter, I had the opportunity to visit my friend in Japan. The country was beautiful, the food was delicious, and it was exciting to see things in real life that I'd only ever seen through movies and books and in the lingering elements of Imperial Japanese presence in Taiwan. We did a sushi lunch and then hit the city, where we saw historic Tokyo Station, the Imperial Palace, and Meiji Temple, and then we drove back to my friend's little town where we sat in an onsen pretty much until it closed, which I liked so much that I insisted that we go to a second one the very next morning, where we overlooked this mountain range which included Mount Fuji. I can't stress enough how much I loved seeing the country that my friend now calls home, and how much I want to go back and visit again, maybe for skiing next time. It was also a very eye-opening experience in terms of understanding the relative wealth of nations. Japan is currently in its fourth decade of no economic growth. This is something I've heard for years in abstract terms, but it's always competed with another, louder narrative. When I was little, Japan had the second largest economy. I was raised with Studio Ghibli movies, my family drives Japanese cars, and Japan is a leading technological innovator like high-speed rail, which has yet to come to the United States. Furthermore, Japan is a G7 nation, and its people are the longest lived in the world. Given all of this, it was really hard for me to wrap my mind around the reality of 3 decades of economic stagnation and counting. My first brush with the Japanese economy was the consumer goods we bought. The prices all seemed reasonable. Our lunch was about $8, parking in Tokyo was $36, which is a little high, but last weekend I saw similar prices in Manhattan. The snacks we bought at the convenience store were a few dollars and the onsen was $7. If anything, Japan seemed inexpensive. The surprise was the price of driving to and from Tokyo. Between gas and tolls, it was 18,000 yen, or $135 for a 2-hour drive there and back. That was my only contact with the Japanese infrastructure, but my friend gave me some more insight. For example, the Japanese have email, but the servers aren't secure because the infrastructure updates are prohibitively expensive. My friend's coworkers send faxes to each other like it's 1990. Coincidentally, that's when the Japanese economic bubble burst. The idea that post-World War II Japanese success had really gone away took me a day to learn, but months to come to terms with through extensive research and recontextualization of everything I knew. I had to think through why I'd gotten things so wrong in the first place. Part of the equation is nationalism. No country proudly displays its weaknesses to the world. Another factor is that it's really hard to notice the differences between two cultures without actually going someplace. Without immersion, you place the most iconic differences you pick up into the schema you're familiar with. The last reason why it was hard for me to imagine that the people of another rich country have less than Americans do is because I've never wanted to come off as America's supremacist. I was raised to always admire what other nations do well and lament that it wasn't a part of our own culture, like the German government funds its museums generously, and so should we. This way of thinking about other countries, coupled with a propensity towards humility about my own country, leaves very little space to understand the way that the US's vast wealth does play a part in the way I live. For example, I have easy access to cash as a resource because of the extensive government spending that flows through my home city of Washington, D.C. Having seen that access to it is not always a given, even in a rich country, I'm far more appreciative of this resource both on a personal level, in which it's relatively easy for me to make a living, and a societal one in which I can enjoy available infrastructure.